Okay, all right, so I'm going to get you just to come and stand to start off with. And welcome to pelvic floor, core and yoga. If you have your strap nearby, just put it down for a moment so we can get into good posture, then I'll get you to pick it up again. So one of the main things about yoga and why it is so fantastic for us as women, especially as we're coming into these sort of perimenopause to postmenopausal years, is that we use the diaphragmatic breath. And because we use the diaphragm properly when we're breathing, we connect in with the pelvic diaphragm. So basically the top and the bottom of this canister, which holds our organs and our intestines, and the deep transverse abdominal muscles and the multifidi muscles, the extensor muscles at the back, and these core muscles at the front are part of this big sort of core area, top and tailed by diaphragm and pelvic diaphragm. So when we're breathing properly, when we're breathing diaphragmatically, we get this beautiful synergy between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor diaphragm. So I'm going to get you to come into that now, and then we're going to start working into some posture. So if you take your strap and you just place it around your ribs, and we're looking to take the strap around the bottom ribs. So if you just find your floating ribs right at the very bottom of your rib cage here, and that's where you want to have your belt, and see if you can just hold on to one end. So it's not tight, but you can feel it relatively snug against the base of your rib cage. Good. Now we're going to stand so that we're nice and tall. So lift your toes and spread them. So you have nice wide feet and your toes are splayed out. So imagine you've got wet sand underneath your feet and you're letting the sand squidge through your toes. And then keep the knees a little bit soft. So we don't lock the knees, just a little bit soft at the back. And then see if you can push down into the ground as you recoil upwards. And I like to imagine there is a string from the crown of the head just pulling you up towards the ceiling like so. And there's also a string that attaches to the ridge at the back of the head, and that's also lengthening you up. So it's almost like you are a puppet on strings. So you're being pulled up through the crown of the head, and yet the body just kind of drops away from those strings. So we've got a softness through those shoulders, and it's quite nice just to roll one shoulder and then the other shoulder back. And feel as if you have weights at the base of your shoulder blades, just drawing your shoulder blades down your back. So we just avoid the scrunching up. Hypertension starts around the shoulders, so we want to constantly be dropping our shoulders downwards and avoiding the scrunching up and rounding through the front of the chest here. So dropping shoulders back. Now, when we breathe in yoga, we breathe in and out of the nostrils, at least for most of the time. Otherwise, we breathe in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. And we direct the breath. So using the sort of the constriction of the strap now, I'm going to get you with your chin drawn in slightly through the lift at the ridge of the head, with your chin drawn slightly in. Start to breathe in through the nostrils and pull the breath downwards and then out underneath the armpits. So you push into the strap here and then up. So it feels as if you are filling a big vase of water. As you pour the breath in, it fills out to the sides and then it comes up. And then as you breathe out, just feel the base of the rib cage very gently coming inwards towards your spine in order to kind of press the breath out of you. So we have a slight constriction on the back of the throat. And so when we breathe in and out, and it works just simply by drawing the chin back in slightly, when we breathe in and out, we create a sound to the breath. It's a very soft kind of Darth Vader sound, or it sounds like water or the sea rushing up a beach and then pulling back again. And it's that kind of feeling, like a pull and a push. And I like to imagine it's almost like an accordion. As you breathe in, you're pulling the accordion open, stretching out into these intercostal muscles between the ribs, and then exhaling, and all the breath is just pouring out of you as you draw the rib cage inwards. So keep seeing if you can create that sort of stretched out breath by feeling your ribs pressing out against your belt. And then as you exhale, you get a little bit of a gap here as the ribs draw back in again. So we have that smooth breath. Good. And if you've never done this before, it feels kind of strange. An easy way to get into it is by pretending you're misting up a mirror with your mouth. Just go, and then gently close your mouth and keep breathing like that, but in and out of your nostrils. So have that sort of slight constriction to breathe in and out. Good. And if you wouldn't mind just checking you've got yourselves on mute, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Good, so keep breathing like that. Keep using your strap for a moment. I'm just going to take mine away so I can explain this next bit. So when we're standing in alignment, we want to be avoiding overlordosis, which is over pushing out through the bottom and therefore pushing through the chest. Now, this is not very common anymore. What we tend to see is, because we do so much sitting in our lifestyles, is a flattened lower back and the pelvis pushed forward and everything slightly posterior, which means tucked under, pushed under and slightly forward. And this also tends to marry with shoulders forward and head poked forward. And you can see simply, I'm exaggerating it here, but the things that are wrong with this pose, or this way of standing, this way of sitting, is numerous. To start off with, our pelvic floor gets scrunched. So it simply cannot have that good connection with the diaphragm. It gets scrunched under. We lose the use of our gluteal muscles. They tend to go flat after a while, and so we become very quad dominant. When we become quad dominant, we also get tight IT bands, and kneecaps tend to start to track off, and we get knee pain as well. So a lot of the pain that we find in our knees, in our hip area, can come from the pelvis tucking under. When we tuck under like this, we also flatten out the lumbar spine, and this is one of the most crucial parts of good pelvic health, is to have a natural lordosis, normal curve through the lower back, because the lower back here and the front of your pelvis, the pubic bone and the lower belly, they hold your organs in place. So you have your bladder, which is on a little diagonal line here, and then the uterus, which sits on top of the bladder, and then you've got the rectum. They all sit snugly on top of each other, and the rectum is supported by the lumbar spine, and the bladder is supported at the front by the pubic bone. So if we lose that curve, if we come away from the slight anterior tilt into a posterior tilt, what we end up doing is we end up taking those organs and tilting them away from their support. So they are now going straight downwards onto a pelvic floor, which is not nice and elongated, but all scrunched up. And so we're much more likely to end up with pelvic floor dysfunction. So part of what I do is get you to start to be really well aware of your alignment and get back into natural curvature of your spine and a nice lengthened out pelvic floor. So I'm going to get you guys to all do that now. If you just take your straps away, if you've still got them there, take them away, keep breathing into the rib cage, so keep that diaphragmatic breath going. Keep trying to slow your breath down so it becomes nice and stretched out, especially the exhalation. And then come and stand with your feet just about hip width apart, nice wide toes like we started with. Press down, lengthen up through the crown of the head, roll one shoulder back and then the other shoulder back. And let your hands hang and let your fingers be slightly forward, so your thumbs slightly forward like so. Now notice a couple of things. The psoas muscles here, the hip flexors, if your pelvis is pushed forward, they will be flat. It'll be smooth and flat here. We don't want that. We want there to be a little dip here. So just literally get your fingers and push your pelvis back so you get a bit of a ducky bump. It feels like you're like a duck, you're just sticking your bottom out behind you. So the behind needs to be behind us, not in front of us. Let it go behind you. Now, I know for some of you it's going to feel unbelievably strange to let your bottom go behind, because most women have spent a lifetime sucking the belly in and tucking the pelvis under. Unfortunately, all of this pressure, all of that squeezing and tucking is like a toothpaste tube squeezing in the middle, so pressure goes downwards or upwards. So either a hernia or potential pelvic organ prolapse. So we don't want this kind of sucky-tucky thing. Let your behind be behind you. You'll find that your tummy doesn't necessarily drop out once we lengthen through the spine. So we don't want to be doing any more sucking of the belly. We need to let that happen naturally through our corsetry muscles working. So now Draw up through the crown of the head, draw up through the ridge of the back of the head, lengthen here, but drop the base of the rib cage. So these ribs here, the floating ribs, we want to avoid the flaring up. What happens if they flare up is we destabilize our core muscles and we literally pull those recti muscles apart. These are the external sort of six-pack muscles. And you'll remember when you're pregnant, you know, the linear elbow, that sort of darkened line, which is the seam between these muscles. And some of you might have had diastasis recti where the muscles have come apart. Well, often the underlying reason for that is this kind of soldier posture when we're pregnant. So we want to make sure that we drop the base of the rib cage so that those muscles can come together and so that the underneath muscles, the deep transverse abdominal muscles, that are those corsetry muscles, so they can actually work, they can fire properly. So drop the base of the rib cage down. Now when we're in good alignment, the base of the rib cage, so if you put your thumb on the base of your rib cage where the floating rib is, and the top of the pelvis, if you just reach down with the fingers and push onto the front of your hip crest here, and your pubic bone are all in one line. So if you sort of take away where your tummy is, that's all in one line. If we're posteriorly rotated, pelvis is forward and the rib cage is back and the hips are slightly forward. The head tends to be forward like that. Like I said, we don't tend to see this so much anymore, but if you are like that in more lordosis, the rib cage will be forward of the pelvis. Yes, we don't want that, we don't want that, we want stacking. Fantastic. So take your feet a little bit wide now. We're going to start the practice. Drop down so that you are in, it's called goddess stance. Now we want to draw the knees back so that they're sitting on top of the ankles. Make sure your knees aren't coming forward, pelvis isn't coming forward like that. Draw the knees back. Imagine you have a tail like a dog or a monkey, and someone's got your tail and they're just kind of pulling it back slightly. Try not to collapse forward. Instead, lift up through the crown of your head and draw the front and the back of these muscles slightly in, pelvic floor slightly up. Fantastic. Good. And I'm just going to get you to do some big swishes here. Stretch your fingertips out, bend the knees, and just mobilize your spine now. The spine loves to be twisted like so. All the nerves of the body attach into the spine. So when we do a gentle twist like this, we're starting to invigorate, to wake up the body. And this action also pulls the breath into the lungs, pushes the breath out of the lungs. So a nice way to wake up when you first get up out of bed. Do some mobilization. We find that, especially around these years, women tend to get a lot stiffer around the shoulders and through the trunk. And this can directly affect how mobile, how elastic our arterial vessels are, all the veins, arteries into the heart. So really important that we do mobilization through the torso, which is why yoga can be so good. Now turn this into a discus throwing movement. So you throw the discus, you stretch the body, and then exhale and come down. So just try doing this, so you stretch the whole body, throw the discus, come down. Inhale as you throw, exhale, coming down. And as you exhale, just open your mouth and sigh out. And as you sigh out, feel your lower jaw starting to unwind away from your upper jaw. So you might need to wriggle your jaw a bit. Nature's way of releasing tension, a big sigh out. Good. And then come back and just give your upper back a tap. So we get a bit of that twist coming upwards through the spine into the thoracic spine, the upper back area. Wonderful. And then dropping down again, roll your shoulders, shimmy your way down. And then maybe even taking arms up and behind, if that's okay, on your shoulders, getting full range of mobility through the shoulder girdle. If you just look at your hands, now notice what happens with your knees. Do they want to drop in? Do they want to do funky things? Try and keep your knees over your ankles, like so. And then coming down a little bit deeper. So now we want to have the weight through our heels, so we start to activate our thigh muscles, especially the muscles just above the knees. And then take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, pull your arms upwards and exhale down. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. And as you breathe out, just let the lower jaw release. Sigh it out. Very good. Stay down. Now lift up and over. As you lift up and over, drop heavily down through the heel and draw your elbow back and draw your shoulder away from your ears. Now we want to start to breathe right underneath the armpit. So we're flaring those ribs and breathing into the intercostal muscles between the ribs. Pull the breath right up through the back of your lungs as well. Good, and then up and over to the other side. Drop the shoulder, press down through the heel. So we feel that lovely full body stretch up the side. Lovely lateral stretch, side stretch for the spine. And getting good mobility through the side body. And then coming down into the center, turn your toes in slightly, hands just above the knees. And then drop one shoulder down, look over the other shoulder. Breathe in and then stretch and rinse the other way. So I want you to imagine that you are being pulled across from your chest. So it feels like your chest is drawing you down. And we want to take this twist right into T2. So right into that thoracic area in the spine, where a lot of us, just around the bra strap, get locked. Get very stiff. And this can have a very detrimental impact on our heart health. So keeping this area mobile, keeping us able to take full breaths is really, really important. You come back into the center, lift your tail behind you, like so. Let your shoulders drop down your back. Breathe in, and then as you breathe out, tuck your tail under, so we mobilize the pelvis. And then lift your tail behind you, spreading those sitting bones. And then as you tuck, draw the sitting bones towards each other. So sitting bones flare, sitting bones draw together, sitting bones flare, sitting bones draw together. Good. Now start to take it right up through the spine. So start with the tailbone, but allow that lift to come to the heart center, that tuck to roll right through to the crown of your head, getting a nice stretch through those shoulders. Breathing in, breathing out, as if you're on a swing. So what we're doing here is we're getting that wonderful breath connection, diaphragm through the pelvic floor. As we breathe in, the pelvic floor is receiving the breath, and as we exhale, we're getting a natural contraction inwards and drawing upwards. So we get this natural vacuum through those pelvic floor muscles and right deep into the pelvic bowl. So using breath with movement. Good. And then coming up again and just roll those hips, big circles. So you want the hip bones to lift, drop, like so. Good. So really interesting. If you find this quite stiff and you're finding it quite hard to hula hoop, then practice doing this while you're brushing your teeth. What we're doing here is we're actually mobilizing the psoas muscles, and these are the muscles that connect the bottom part of the body to the top part of the body. They go from the inner thigh, they go right through the pelvic floor, through the diaphragm, and then they connect into the lower back. So when we do lots of sitting and lots of sort of stiff non-mobilization work, like running, this area can become very, very stiff, and we can start to get bad lower back pain. So important to release these muscles. And other direction, big circles, to add a little bit of heart rate work, arms out to the side, pull out through the fingertips, draw the shoulders back. Imagine you have an orange between your shoulders. You're kind of squeezing it slightly. Stretch right out through fingertips. Good. Maybe even taking the arms up, dropping the shoulders down. Wonderful. And then slowly coming up and relax those shoulders. So we'll just go over the breath again, connection with the pelvic floor. So diaphragm and pelvic floor. So I need you to soften your knees. Now breathe in. And as you breathe in, just let your knees bend slightly. And then as you breathe out, I want you to feel, as you come up with those legs a bit straighter, that you are gathering your pelvic floor, just like you're picking up a tissue. You're gathering it inwards, and then you're slightly lifting up. So you're doing it with the breath. Breathing in to release, and exhaling. Try breathing out through your mouth for this. As you exhale, you gather in and lift up. Good. So keep doing this. Keep your crown lifted. It's kind of like two jellyfish on top of each other in the ocean. Dropping and lifting. Good, so inhaling and exhaling. Now, we're going to make this a bit more exaggerated. So this is called the knack. This is something that we need to always do when we are lifting something heavy, or even not that heavy, even a basket of washing or something, or if we're going from sitting to standing, it's important that we don't put too much pressure downwards on the pelvic floor without having a counter lift. So I'm going to get you to drop down a little bit further. Remember, behind is behind us. We want to use the bum muscles, hamstrings, not the knees, so not forward like so. Drop down. Imagine you're picking up something heavy, and then as you exhale, push the floor away with your heels. Draw up through the pelvic floor. Now just drop your pelvic floor. Just let it go. So hopefully you felt, just with the breath out as we came up, that the pelvic floor muscles are lifting, and then you could actually just release it down again. So we'll try it again. Come down. Breathing in. Knees back, bum back, sitting bones lifted. You imagine you're picking something up heavy, and as you exhale, you push the floor away with your heels, exhaling all the way up, and then just let your pelvic floor release down. So that release down is to kind of basement level. That's as soft as you would be just before you went for a wee. But then if you go back to that lift, and try it on an exhale, yeah, that's the drawing in pubic bone, tailbone, sitting bones, the four corners of the pelvic floor where they're attached to, drawing in and up, and then we just want to relax it again. So we'll try the same thing, but this time coming into a more traditional squat. So this time have your feet so they're parallel, or maybe a bit wider than parallel. So they are, sorry, a bit wider than your hips. Hips are from the front of your pelvis here through the knees, so properly hip width apart is like that, but I'm going to go a tiny bit wider. Now take your arms out in front of you and then draw your shoulder blades backwards. So get that orange and just kind of hold it between your shoulders like so. Beautiful. Now start to take the weight into your heels. So about 80% of your weight is in your heels. Toes are still on the ground, they're still nice and spread, but you've got very little weight through your toes. And then start to pull your tail behind you. So imagine someone's behind you, and they're just pulling your tail back. And as they pull your tail back, you'll lengthen your hands out in front to counterbalance. So you're dropping down, bend the knees. You're going to need to bend your knees and pause before you feel the tail tucking under. So if I kept going, eventually my pelvis would start tucking under and I'd feel a stretch in the lower back. So see if you can stay at a point where your sitting bones are still lifted. Now, as you exhale, you push the floor away, pretend you're throwing a basketball, and then just relax your pelvic floor and drop down again. Exhaling, relax your pelvic floor, drop down. Exhaling, relax the pelvic floor. Do it a bit faster. So don't worry too much about the pelvic floor, just with the breath. It is working very deeply now into your pelvic bowl. Exhaling, push the floor away. You want to feel this through your bum muscles, your gluteal muscles, and through the top of the hamstrings, not through your knees and not through your quads. So if you're feeling it in the quads, you're probably coming forward like so. If you're feeling it in the knees, you're probably here. So see if you can keep those knees right on top of ankles instead. Exhaling, exhaling, exhaling. 3 more. Exhaling up, getting blood pumping through those legs. 1 more for good luck. Slowly exhaling up, and then let your arms go and let your pelvic floor go. Good, and then come, and we'll just do a little Elvis twist to release the big rotator muscles around those hip joints. So come onto one leg and rock and roll from the hip joint. So rather than just flopping your knee around, see if you can feel that ball and socket joint rolling here, and give your torso a little bit of a twist as well. This is also stimulating for the digestion, so wonderful for elimination, which hopefully you know, but you might not, is also unbelievably important so that we can get rid of, it's called reconjugated estrogen. So we can get rid of the bad estrogen, the estrogen that turns up in the belly fat around this time in our lives. We can get rid of it. We need to do that by good elimination. We don't want constipation. So whatever we can do to avoid constipation is a good thing. Twist, lots and lots of fiber, lots of water. Good, and then come back and just give your hips a roll around again. Okay, I'm going to get you to come against the wall, and we're going to just get into, I call it getting tall against the wall, so getting into really nice, properly stacked alignment. So take your bit of wall, and And if you do find that you have got postural stuff which you're not happy with, or you're starting to shrink, if over time you feel like you are starting to shrink, you're getting shorter each year, then this is a really, really important thing that you can start to incorporate to keep that hydration through the vertebra and keep your height. So we want to take our feet parallel, and this time hip width apart, so not wider. Now lift and spread your toes. You need to have about an inch, maybe 2 inches. I've got 2 inches here behind my heels, so we're not directly against the wall. And don't let your knees lock. So many of us actually stand with our legs locked and the pelvis pushes forward. So soften the knees slightly so the back of the knees feel a little bit soft. That's it. Now push down and out with your feet. Imagine you're growing roots deep, deep down into the earth. And as you push those feet down into the earth, you also kind of press them outwards. So hopefully you'll feel a bit of activation here through the outer muscles, the abductor muscles, and maybe even a little bit of a lift or a little bit of a bit of action through your bottom. I like to imagine that your tail, that we are pretending we've got, your tail is going through the wall, and there's somebody on the other side of the wall and they're pulling your tail. So see if you can kind of push your bum back into the wall. This is just for this exercise. You don't actually walk around pushing your bum back to this extent, so that we have a softness here through those psoas muscles, the hip flexors that we can actually feel. So if you just push your pelvis forward, you'll feel it hard. We want to stick our bum back, so there's a dip, there's a little softness there. And then let your shoulders drop into the wall, and let the ridge at the back of your head just drop into the wall as well. If you have a significant head poke forward, which is very common, don't worry if you do, we start where we are, then you might need to slide a blanket or something just behind your head so you've got something to press into. Wonderful. So softening here. Now pretend you've got your basketball in your hands again, and on an exhalation, the exhalation activates our corsetry, remember. On an exhalation, push your basketball away from you. So breathe out through your mouth, push it away, so we feel the deep transverse abdominal muscles switching on, and those floating ribs kind of sucking downwards towards the spine. Turn the palms forward, drop the hands down. Now roll one shoulder up and slide it down, and then the other shoulder up and slide it down. So your fingertips are pulling down towards the ground. Now this is the interesting bit. We need to push down and out with our feet. Yeah, so we need to push back with our bum. Now push back with your hands and your forearms, and see if you can squash the arms between your shoulders into the wall to keep those ribs sucking down towards your spine. And press back with the ridge of your head, and then slide the ridge up ever so slightly, so you feel a stretch through the back of your neck. And then push down and out with your feet again, soften the knees, back with your bum, back between your shoulders, squash the orange, back with your arms quite hard, and back and up with your head. Keep breathing. We want to breathe underneath the armpits here like a fish into your gills. So keep breathing, but try not to make it a chest breath. A little bit shallow because we're squashing our lungs right now, but make it a breath that comes sideways. Down and out with the feet, soften the knees, back with your bum, back with your arms, back between the shoulders, back and up with the head. Push everything back and down and out and up. Stretch that spine. And then just come away from the wall, soften, come away from the wall, roll your shoulders, and then roll your head. So give your head a lovely big roll. Keep the weight of your head kind of rolling around, and maybe even roll those shoulders. Give yourself a little release out of the shoulders, one direction and then the other. Nice rolling, releasing sensation. And now place your head back on top of your neck, perfectly positioned, so it feels like if you had a big heavy crown sitting on your head right now, the weight of that crown, with lots of diamonds and rubies and sapphires, the weight of that crown is going straight down through your skeleton. And hopefully, if you step away from the wall, you'll feel like everything is stacked. You want to have the air stacked on top of the shoulder, stacked on top of the hip, stacked on top of the knee, stacked on top of the ankle. So away from the pelvis forward scrunch and into this position where we simply feel taller. And simply by putting ourselves into alignment, we start to have more of an upward spiral with our thoughts. We just become more positive. We also have a much more open chest so that the diaphragm can receive the breath more fully. We can breathe properly. And simply by being better in alignment, we get that natural synergy between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, and our deep corsetry muscles start to work naturally. So simply by walking around in good alignment, sitting in good alignment, you can get your core muscles activated. So we're going to test that now. I'm going to get you to stand and add a bit of balance to your corsetry work. Taking your weight into your right leg, start to squeeze your thigh muscles. You consciously squeeze those thigh muscles in towards your thigh bone. Keep the knees slightly soft and your feet really spread. So you want to stretch them almost like hobbit feet, nice and big and fat feet on the ground. Crown of the head is being pulled up by that string. Now just take your foot behind you for a moment. Before we come into the actual exercise, give it a little tap up and down. What I want you to do is feel the top of your bum here working. This is gluteus medius, top of the bottom, and hopefully it'll kind of bounce out into your hand a little bit here. That's what we're aiming for anyway. If your bottom muscles haven't been activated for a while, nothing much might be happening at the moment, but that's okay. It's always a work in progress. We just start where we are. Okay, so let the foot settle now. Squeeze again, especially just above the knee. Open your arms, shoulders are away from your ears. Now, as we exhale, what we're going to do, I'll just show you one. As we exhale, we're going to draw the knee up. We're going to close the jaws. Now, I want you to try to keep your torso tall so corsetry works hard. Pelvic floor will naturally lift on that exhalation. See if you can draw everything up underneath the rib cage. And then we open the body again. Okay, so here we go. So exhaling to snap those jaws shut. Inhaling, see if you can stretch right out. It might be that your toes go back onto the ground. Absolutely fine. If you're finding balance easier, then I want you to challenge yourself by taking the toes off the ground. Wonderful. Use that big breath out to activate naturally through the core muscles. We're doing a lot of work on that standing leg, strengthening, bone strengthening. So this is weight bearing, strengthening for the femur, which is a very, very, very important bone to keep strong. Good. And last one, very slowly, close it here. Now see if you can hook your hands behind your knee and just draw your knee up. Crown of the head is being pulled up towards the ceiling. Stretch the whole side of the body and then drop your leg. And just give that standing leg a little bit of an Elvis twist to relieve it, right from the ball and socket joint here. Wonderful. So we don't necessarily need weights in order to do weight-bearing exercise. We can use the weight of our body. And the great thing about yoga is that we do a lot of holds where we really are activating muscles strongly around bones and getting those bones to regenerate. So swap feet. This is it. Take the foot behind you. Just start to switch on the gluteus maximus, so medius at the top. So little taps here. Top of the bottom is activated. A little bit, so we're not out to the side. If you're out to the side, you'll feel it here. We want to feel it here, just at the top of the bottom. So little kicks upwards, but try to make the kick come from your bottom rather than just flopping your foot around. Yeah. So this is the action. Different from if we were donkey kicking, where we get gluteus maximus. This is slightly different. Okay, so open up your crocodile jaws. As you exhale, draw the knee up. Ooh, lost my balance. And open on the inhalation. So exhaling to close and activate the core. Inhaling to release. Exhaling to close. Inhaling to release. Good, keep going with this. Now keep your eye gaze soft. So I want you to soften the little muscles around your eyes deliberately. See if you can make your eyes feel kind of lazy. And simply by doing that, by softening, it's called our dristi, our eye gaze, we're telling our brain that even though we're stressing the body, that we're still relaxed, we're still calm. You can keep the breath long and smooth, which also tells us that we're okay to go into that parasympathetic nervous system. So the last one here, draw the knee in, pull the knee up, crown of the head is lifted, push the foot down, shoulders are relaxed, smile, and then drop that foot and give yourself a little release through the hip joint again. Very good. And come against your bit of wall and just take your hands up nice and high so the rib cage comes away from the pelvis and do some big circles with the hips. Once again, just releasing into those psoas muscles, one direction and then the other. Now walk your hands down the wall and step your feet directly underneath your hips. So you can have your knees bent if you want to, if you need to. What we're looking to do though is stretch the spine as much as possible. So imagine, knees can be bent, imagine someone's got your tail, and they're pulling your tail backwards and slightly up. So we are lifting and flaring our sitting bones. Now you can't see because my t-shirt's, but I want you to also draw the base of the ribcage inwards. So we're actually working on the back muscles, the front muscles, lifting sitting bones. There's no pressure on the pelvic floor at the moment because we've got the pelvic floor lifted. Organs are dropping away from the pelvic floor, down on top of each other, and on top of the pubic bone and the lower belly. Now, we want to have the fingers quite wide on the wall, and a bit of extra pressure through the little fingers. Thumbs are quite light, so that we drape downwards underneath the armpits here. This is called serratus anterior. And we want to pull these muscles down towards the anterior, the front of the body, like so. And that's spreading our shoulders, giving us lots of space around the shoulders, around the neck. Maybe give your head a shake. Now, crown of the head is drawing forward towards the wall. So chin's tucking in. Imagine the mother cat's picked you up by the scruff of the neck. And then the tail is lifted. So we have this big length all the way through the back of the body. A really nice stretch to do if you're at your desk all day. Pressing down and out with your feet now. See if you can lift the sit bones, stretch the hamstrings a bit more. Getting a really good workout for the back, making sure those the extensor muscles are activating, also working on the core. Good. Now step your right foot forward and just walk your fingertips up the wall slightly. Shuffle your back foot back. Keep the heel off the ground, toes are on the ground. Now push back with the heel, and as you do so, let your front knee draw forward until we feel the stretch going all the way down into those quads, the front of the thighs, and also into these hip flexors. So this is a really good high lunge, and we are making it deeper by pushing out through the back heel, and that allows the knee to come forward. Now try taking your left arm up towards the ceiling, dropping the shoulder away from the ear, so that we create just a very soft curve through the body, and we get a stretch through the whole front line of the body. Smooth breath. Very good. Now take fingertips back on the wall, straighten both legs, and see if you can pull your front toes back as you also pull your tail back. And now we're looking for a stretch into the hamstrings here. So the front leg, hamstrings, getting a nice bit of lengthening. Beautiful. Now just soften both knees, and as you soften both knees, push your back heel into the ground, and then start to stretch into the back heel, stretch into the back leg. So we take this stretch from the Achilles up into the calf. So we'll find also, keep going with that, we'll find also that when our calves, our Achilles, our calves, our hamstrings are very tight, what happens is the tightness there pulls the pelvis under. So although we want to do a lot of work to strengthen the bum muscles, really, really important, we need to do that with lengthening these hamstrings, because otherwise, if we're posteriorly tucked, it's almost impossible to get into the glutes. If we're posteriorly tucked and we're doing stretches where we're rounding the back, we're not really getting into the hamstrings, which is why I'm getting you to keep lifting your sitting bones behind you, if that makes sense. Good, and then just swapping to the other side. So shuffle back, make sure that the heel's off, and you're getting that lovely stretch through the front of the legs. So I'm just going to swivel around so you can see me here. Beautiful. Heel pushing back, knee pushing forward, crown of the head is lifted. Maybe lifting the arm as well, so we get that sort of elongation through the whole front line of the body. Rib cage lifting, so we can get a nice deep breath underneath the arms here. Very good. Beautiful. And then just softening down. And as you soften down, straightening the legs, coming forward. So we keep straight here, keep the legs straight, and maybe pulling those back toes, these front toes forward and up. So we get more into the hamstrings here. We can use the wall for support, like so. And then soften both knees. And this time push the wall away with your hands. So as you push down into your Achilles, to start off with, slightly bent back knee, push the wall away, shoulders away from ears, just so we activate through these chest muscles here, and draw tummy buttons slightly in towards spine. Now push back through a straight leg, back leg, And now take the stretch into the belly of your calf muscle. Shoulders away from the ears. Really push the wall away. That's going to increase the stretch. Good. Very nice. And then coming up and give your legs a shake. Just turn yourself around on a wall and stick your bottom against the wall. And then walk your feet slightly forward. That's the way. And then just kind of walk your bottom up the wall. Walk your sitting bones up the wall until your legs are straightish and you can feel a stretch on the back of your legs, on those hamstrings. Now we can either keep our backs a bit straight and just walk our hands down. Head is about heart height. Or if you have no lower back issues, if you're not worried about your lower back at all, we can hold our elbows and let the weight of the head and the arms just draw us forward. If you're doing this version, keep your knees slightly soft. So this is just a really nice forward fold. It's a restorative forward fold. And just notice how the exhalation becomes a bit more exaggerated when you are in a forward fold like this. So let the jaw be loose. Let the exhalation be complete. So every bit of breath comes out of the body. And just pause at the end of each exhalation and that little gap. Nice stretch through the back. This is also very stimulating for the pituitary gland. So it's a very nice way to stimulate our natural hormone production. Good. Give your arms a little shake here. Give your head a shake. And then take your bottom off the wall. So you don't need to just kind of launch yourself with your fingertips off the wall. Stretch your hands out and place your hands on the ground. Keep the knees bent and kind of walk yourself forward onto your mat. So you might need to bear walk over to your mat again. And once you get here, we're coming into downward facing dog. And I want you to just pedal your heels down to the ground one at a time. And the focus is on lifting your tail back and up. So spreading those sitting bones, aiming your tail for the bit between the wall and the ceiling. And then keeping your arms nice and wide. And just like when we had our hands against the wall, we're draping this part underneath the armpits down towards the ground. So this is this kind of external rotation of the shoulders. Another way to do it is to pretend you have a plate underneath your hands and you're kind of spinning the plate outwards. So we get a nice kind of spiral through the arms and into the shoulders. Give the head a shake and then dropping down onto your knees. Take the knees wide-ish and drop your pelvis down. Now if you have prolapse or a lot of heaviness in the pelvic floor at the moment, keep your tailbone slightly higher, maybe sliding a blanket underneath your pelvis here. And dropping down, either stacking fists, one on top of the other, and letting your forehead drop onto your fists, or forehead onto the ground, and arms just out in front of you. Or if it feels good on your shoulders, take your hands down beside your feet so that you can get a really lovely softening, draping through your shoulders. So I'm going to get you just to come into that child pose for a moment or two, into your version of child pose. Sitting bones stretching out, pelvic floor receiving your breath, and shoulders relaxing, and your breath becoming just softer, allowing it to become softer now. Good. So the pelvic floor muscles attach to the pubic bone at the front and the tailbone at the back, and then the sitting bones. So they are skeletal muscles, which mean they attach onto the skeleton. So where our tailbone sits, as in what we do with our posture, where our sitting bones sit, directly affects how our pelvic floor muscles actually work. And of course, they contain the sphincter muscles, which directly affect our continence, bladder and bowel continence. So we need to make sure that we don't have scrunched up pelvises. We need to make sure that the pelvic muscles are able to be elongated by the placement of the bones, if that makes sense. Don't worry if it doesn't. It's an awful lot of information for first lesson. You'll get it over time. But I'm going to get you now to come back into that opening and closing of the pelvic bones. So coming onto hands and knees, stretch your hands out. Start off in a tabletop position and Try to make your torso relatively active in this tabletop. Crown of the head is drawing forward, tail is pulling back. So it feels as if you have a rod going from the crown of your head, through the neck, through the spine, and out through your tail, straight back. So tummy muscles are kind of drawing a little bit in. Yeah, so not just kind of sagging through the back. We're a little bit active here. And if you push your hands into the ground, we have a tiny bit of a rounding through the upper back. It's more that these are the rhomboids between our shoulder blades. They're getting a little bit of activation here, a little bit of a stretch between the shoulder blades. Now let's start by just mobilizing the pelvis. So lift the tail, breathe in, tuck the tail as you breathe out. So just like we did when we're standing, get cat and cow to come from your tailbone. The tail is actually the instigator of our core muscles. I'll say that again, the tailbone and where the tailbone sits is directly related to how our core muscles, which the pelvic floor is part of our core, how they all work. So we want to make sure that this movement isn't just through our shoulders like so, but is absolutely through the pelvis. Yes, we might get a bit of rounding through the upper back or a lift through the upper back, and that's wonderful, but don't let it come from the upper back. Let it come from your tail. Good. Beautiful. Come back into neutral spine. Now drop your pelvis backwards. Stretch your hands out for a moment. And this time I'm going to get you to stretch right underneath the arms. So take the fingers onto the ground, but the wrists off the ground. Roll your shoulders away from your ears. Keep your tail a little bit higher than before. So we start to drop the chest down to the ground and get a bit of a stretch through the mid-back, through the bra strap area, a little bit of a squeezy stretch there, as well as a lengthening stretch underneath the arms, right up into the armpits. Smooth breath. And then we might go on to exaggerate it by coming into a full puppy dog stretch, bum even higher, arms a little bit wider, and chest dropping right down, maybe turning the head to one side. So this is a good squeezy stretch through that thoracic spine, that mid-back area. If this is too much on your shoulders, just fold your forearms. That makes it a bit easier on the shoulders. Beautiful. So we're going to add now some core activation, some safe core activation. So I'm going to show you what you need to be doing. If you were going to do a plank, what you need to be doing before you go into plank, and how it's so unbelievably important for women to have synergistic activation through pelvic floor and then core, rather than just doing that kind of toothpaste tube squeeze in the middle, which, as I said before, can put pressure downwards or upwards, which we don't want. So if you start back, we breathe in, so the pelvic floor is receiving the breath, and we have that lovely elongation of the muscles, which we want. On an exhalation, draw your torso forward and draw your shoulders just over your fingertips. And what we want to be doing with the pelvic floor and the core muscles as we come forward is that kind of tissue picking up motion. So as we exhale, we're drawing inwards and then zipping up through the vagina, through the cervix, right underneath the rib cage, and then we're softening as we come back. Pelvic floor muscles receiving the breath, exhaling, activating, coming forward, and inhaling, coming back. So as we come forward, we're also getting good weight bearing through shoulders, arms, wrists. Inhaling to release, exhaling, activation. So even though this looks like a really simple move, if you're doing it properly with the breath, hopefully as you come forward, you are feeling like it's the pelvic floor lifting, then we're zipping up, and then you're feeling all of your core muscles squeezing in towards your spine. So if we were to just come here and go straight into a plank without doing this first, what we're doing is we're squeezing everything here, and it puts a lot of what's called intra-abdominal pressure downwards. So we were coming to a plank, we were doing that, and I don't tend to do full planks in this class. Really important for us to go set everything and then come into a plank. Yeah. So what I want to get you to do is exhale forward, pause. Now try dipping down, elbows close to the body, so not out to the side, elbows close, and then exhale to come back up again. Inhale, dropping down to release everything. Bottom's released, pelvic floor is released. Exhaling forward. Inhale for a little dip. Exhale to push away, so using your arm muscles, also using your core. Inhale, come back. Okay, that's a bit too much on shoulders at the moment. Stay here. Otherwise, you can come down even deeper if that suits you. But the most important thing is that this is just as much a core, including pelvic floor, workout as it is an arm workout. Elbows stay close so that it is triceps. If we take the elbows out to the side, we'll feel it in our shoulders and right up around our neck. So try to keep the elbows really tucking inwards. Exhaling forward, inhaling to dip, exhaling, and still lift it through the pelvic floor and drop back. And last one, forward. This time as you dip, come all the way down onto your belly. Keep the elbows close into the body, the hands just underneath the shoulders. Tops of the feet are on the ground, so the toenails push into the ground. And then as you inhale, deep, full, big inhalation now. As you inhale, we fill the lungs with breath and we just kind of lift up slightly. And then we exhale and we drop down again. So it's almost as if we're inflating the lungs, and that inflation is bringing us into a cobra. We're not pushing up through the hands too much here. Hands are pretty light. It's the breath that's making this action work. And when we do it this way, what we actually do is we make all the little multifida muscles, the actual extensor muscles of the back, activate, as opposed to just the big muscle groups. So this is going to help with our posture, no end. Big breath in, and then breathing out. Good. Take your forearms onto the ground now, Sphinx pose. So now we want to have the forearms kind of pulling back on the mat. So it feels as if our chest is being pulled forward as our shoulders are being pulled back. And draw the chin back in again, but let the head lift a slight bit. So we're not tilting the head back. We've just got this sort of gentle curve all the way through the back, a nice even curve. Smooth breath. Getting that mobility again through that thoracic spine, which is just so important for our heart health. And unfortunately, most women die from heart issues, from heart disease. So we really do need to make sure that we keep mobile through the thoracic spine. Take the arms out a little bit wider. Forearms are still on the ground. And then once again, just like before, drop one shoulder. This time look over your shoulder towards your feet and do the same thing on the other side. So we release through those pectoral muscles that we squeezed when we were opening up our calf muscles. So we just want to release the chest. We need to do that because most of us are slightly rounded through the shoulders and these chest muscles are tight. And when these chest muscles are tight and they pull our shoulders forward, we don't get to breathe properly. And the body makes the mind feel more stressed. So part of anxiety can be your posture. And then down again. Good. So roll the shoulders back. We'll just do one or two of these lotus pose, which is also wonderful for activating the whole back line of the body. So as we inhale, pull your fingertips backwards towards the wall and upwards, and lift the chest, and then just drop down for a moment. We're going to do the same thing, roll the shoulders back. Inhale, lift the fingers, lift the toes as well. Now pull toes back, pull fingers back, rocket the crown of the head forward. So activating the whole back line of the body. Breathing in, and then breathing out, and turn your head to one side. Let your whole body become really relaxed. It's like you're a jellyfish. You just let the pelvis rock from one side to the other. Good. Very nice. Now, I'm going to get you just to open up the quads again, because, like I said, so many of us are dominant in the quads, and therefore bum muscles can't activate properly. Take your right arm underneath your forehead, like so, your right hand. Roll your left shoulder back and see if you can bend your knee and grab hold of your ankle. And if your foot's too far away, use your strap. Use your strap around your ankle. It's important that you don't grab your foot, but you grab your ankle. If we grab our foot, we tend to push into the knee, and we don't get to properly activate through the quads. So instead, we really want to get those quads working, the front of the thighs. So grab hold of the ankle. Doesn't really matter if your knees are wide. And then on an exhalation, push your pubic bone down into the ground so we can get a lovely spreading out sensation, a really stretching sensation through the front of that leg and into the groin area. So smooth breath. And I like to imagine my knee is sliding away as well. That sort of increases the lengthening through the muscle fibers here. Nice smooth breath. Good. Drop that foot and then roll the other shoulder back and do the same thing on the other side. So you're holding your ankle rather than your foot. And then on an exhalation, pubic bone pushing down, you're kind of spreading your bikini line into the ground. That's the objective. And getting the sliding sensation of the knee moving away from your pelvis. Beautiful. And then drop that foot, turn your toes inwards and your heels outwards, and just rest. This is called crocodile pose. Just rest here. You'll notice that your pelvis feels a bit more open. When the toes are in and the heels are out, there's a bit more space through the lower back. Really nice if you have got lower back problems, to just give your sacrum area here a bit of space. If we have the pelvis pushed forward all the time, this gets a lot of compression. This is a nice counter movement to that. It's also a great position to activate the front of your pelvic floor. So I'm going to sit up, but I'm going to get you to stay in crocodile pose with toes in. What I'm going to get you to do now is activate around the front of the pelvic floor, so activate around the urethra. And it's about a 6 centimeter tube from the sphincter, the urethra sphincter, where you wee through, right up to the bladder. And I'm going to get you to squeeze inwards as if you are squeezing a pipe inwards, you're stopping a pipe, and then lift upwards. Do it on an exhalation as if you're pulling the pipe upwards towards your bladder. And then as you inhale, just release back down again. And because we're on our tummies, you might be able to feel a slight drawing up of your tummy button away from the floor as you activate the front of the pelvic floor and lift up. So because 70% of the pelvic floor muscles are at the back, around the anus, and we don't have so much strength around the front, for some of us it's really hard to get that activation around the front. And so I find it's easier if we have the proprioception of the ground, and we can actually kind of visualize and feel that drawing in and up, that squeezing of the sphincter and that lifting right through the urethra and then releasing back down. And as you release back down, imagine that hose pipe is kind of widening. So you're stopping it, you're squeezing it in, you're lifting it up, and then you're releasing it down. Okay, we'll just do another couple of those so you get the action, and then you can do this in your own time. And releasing down. Fantastic. Now rolling onto your backs. I'm doing the time. Okay. All right, rolling onto your backs here for a moment. I want to come against the wall soon, so have your strap nearby. But I'm just going to get you to do a few things on your back first of all. So starting off with your pelvis in neutral here, so base of the rib cage, top of the hip bones pretty much parallel. And then start to flatten your lower back and let your tail tuck under, and then release in the other direction. So exhale to tilt and inhale to release. Exhale to flatten and tilt. Inhale to release. Just doing that a couple more times. So we're exaggerating that sort of posterior tilt and anterior tilt, and exaggerating the lumbar curve as we lift upwards and then we flatten it like so. Good. Just once again, giving that mobilization through the pelvis with the breath. And now we're going to activate those glutes a bit more. So push through your heels. You want to have the heels directly underneath the knees. Push through your heels. Roll yourself up so the pelvis comes away from the ground. So we massage up the spine and then roll back down again. One vertebra at a time. Release the glutes and soften the pelvic floor muscles as well. So we exhale, we roll up, and then we inhale and we roll back down again. Remember when we did the squats, the more we pushed our heels into the ground, the more activation we got on our glutes. So try to do the same thing as you come up, rather than just pushing your pelvis up and down. Make the action come from pushing the floor away with your heels. It's quite different, and it gets the back of the body, these really crucial muscles, working much more potently, in the word. Good. So same action, take your feet a little bit wider, same action, you push the floor away, you draw yourself up. Now we're going to squeeze our knees and our thighs together, we're pulsing them. 1, 2, 3, release your knees and roll back down again, and let your bum be soft, let your pelvic floor be soft. So we push the floor away, we exhale, we roll up, we squeeze the knees and the thighs. 1, 2, 3, Release the knees, roll back down, release the bum, release the pelvic floor. And again, so push the floor away, slowly coming up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze the knees, release the knees, roll back down, relax the bum. So we're now working with the breath really deep into the pelvic bowl, and we're activating these inner thigh muscles, which also attach deep into our pelvic bowl, rolling back down. Wonderful. Now draw the knees in towards your chest and do some big circles. So take the hands on top of your knees, and it feels as if you're kind of stirring your femurs, your thigh bones, into the socket there. Nice big stirring action. Beautiful. Now take your knees directly on top of your pelvis here. Take the hands just above the knees on your thighs. So just being here, you'll feel your corsetry activating. Now we're going to make that pelvic floor lift before we put pressure through the core muscles. So I'm going to get you to exhale, activate pelvic floor, zip right up through the vagina, through the cervix towards your belly button. And as you do so, start to press hands on thighs and thighs into hands. Pull your toes back as well so you have active feet. Keep exhaling too. You might have to go drawing in pelvic floor muscles upwards so that you feel corsetry muscles working. And obviously you don't want to be doing it too hard, especially if you can't feel that lift. But if you are doing that lift, this is just going to help you get even more lift upwards, like so. Beautiful. Then release that. Draw your knees into your chest. Keep your right knee into your chest and stretch your left leg out and take your left arm above your head. Now pull your fingers and toes as far apart as possible so you lengthen the whole sideline of the body, and you get a beautiful stretch into the hips there. And then up and over to the other side. So I've got a skylight above me and there's a bird that's just looking at me. Fabulous. Good. So we're going to do a bit more of this in a second, but for the moment, just take your toes together and your knees apart. So this is like a frog pose. Take your arms onto your ankles or onto your shins and gently press your forearms apart. So we stretch those inner thigh muscles. And give your feet a little twirl. So just massage around your ankles here. That's the way. Good. Now, hopefully, you've got your straps close by. Mine's not, so I'm just going to grab my strap. I'm going to get you now to hook your feet into your strap. So it's around the ball of your feet rather than the arch of your feet. And then slide your feet wide on your strap. And then drop your knees down towards your armpits. So we're coming to baby pose, but using a strap as well. If you don't have a strap, don't worry. See if you can grab hold of your toes or your ankles. It doesn't really matter, but just coming into this nice open groined position. Knees really dropping, so we're not holding our legs at all. Whole of the back is flattening into the ground. Shoulders are nice and relaxed. Taking some lovely full breaths in. And what we're doing now is consciously releasing all of the muscles around the pelvic floor, into the groin area, into the lower belly, into the hips. Make sure your jaw is relaxed as well. So interestingly, our jaw and our pelvic floor muscles are deeply interconnected, fascially interconnected. So when we tense around the jaw, which tends to be around the neck as well, we tend to also have tension around the pelvic floor muscles, which can lead to urge incontinence and can lead to prolapse because we simply don't have the function of those. Tense muscles don't mean strong muscles. So releasing muscles in this kind of way is really important. Good. Let's do last stretch on the hamstrings as well. So bring those belts around the top of the feet, press up through the heels. I like to take the belt just above my head, but see what feels good for you. Nice stretch out through those hips and just give your legs a little rub into those hamstrings here, one side and then the other. Very good. That's the way. And take the strap out to the side, knees bent, drop the knees over to one side and then look out over your other arm. So giving yourself a twist. Once again, we're getting a nice release through the spine, but we're also creating a wonderful digestion stimulating twist through those intestines. Make your breath be long and smooth. See if you can just let your mind soften. Almost like you're stepping backwards in your mind into a place where you can hear my voice, but you're almost standing outside of yourself, just watching your body. And feeling the effects of your practice so far. And then up and over to the other side and rinsing out the spine the other way, looking out over your opposite shoulder. Beautiful. So we're just going to spend a few minutes in an inversion. I'm going to get you just to rock and roll up and down, massage your spine for a moment, rock and roll up and down, a bit of stimulation through the spine, and then come over to your bit of wall. If you can, have your blanket, so you have either your blanket or your bolster or your pillow nearby. So you sit your hip against the wall like so, and then you roll your back onto the ground as you take your legs up the wall like this. Fantastic. Now, if you find that this is a bit uncomfortable with your head, slide your blanket just underneath the ridge of your head like that. So we have that nice elongated cervical spine still. And then it's really nice to press your feet into the wall and just take a bit of height underneath your pelvis. So I'm going to move it back a bit so that your pelvis kind of sits on your pillow like a shelf. But now we have all the pelvic organs just dropping away from the pelvic floor. So especially if at the end of the day you feel a bit heavy through the pelvic area, then coming into an inversion like this with the pelvis lifted can be such a relief. And it can also be a really nice position to do those Kegel exercises in, because you also have gravity working with you to draw the organs away from the pelvic floor and to get that activation and that lift through the pelvic floor. But for the moment, we're just going to lie here and relax. Turn the palms upwards. See if you can move the head and then settle it into a really nice, comfortable position. Shuffle your shoulders so that they feel nice and spread out and relaxed into the ground. And then gently close the eyes. So I'm going to get you to stay in that position. I'm just going to come up. Take 3 changing breaths here in this inversion. So changing breath is simply an inhalation through the nostrils and then a sigh out through the mouth. So just signaling to your body and also your brain that it's time now to rest, to integrate your practice, to pause. So doing any final adjustments of the body, and then allowing the legs to become very heavy so you feel the weight of those legs spreading the back of your pelvis. And from there, you start to feel the whole of your back melting, almost wax-like into the ground. And that lovely stretching and releasing of all those little muscles along the spine that we've been working. Feeling a corresponding softening, releasing of the torso, the belly muscles, and also the pelvic floor. So taking the attention just around the muscles of the eyes, softening the muscles around the eye sockets and letting the eyeballs become very heavy in the sockets. And then allowing a softness to flow down through your cheeks and through the lower jaw. And right down through your neck, both the front and the back. Feeling relaxation just flowing down now underneath the skin surface through the whole of your body. The whole of your body. So that you bring about a sense of inner relaxation. Developing an awareness of the whole body from the crown of your head right to the tips of your toes. Stillness and complete awareness of the whole energetic body. And just start to slow your breath now so it becomes very refined and silk-like. And just feeling into the light rise and fall of your belly. As you breathe in, feel as if you are drawing in peace from the world around you. Feel that sense of peace nourishing, connecting with that stillness that's deep inside of you. And then as you exhale, consciously feel as if you're just letting go of anything that is causing you tension or feelings of attachment or any suffering. So it's a very soft, fluid breath, but it's also a conscious breath. And then as you keep this global awareness of the whole of your body, draw your attention down through the belly and into the pelvic bowl. As you breathe in and out, just feel that massaging effect of the breath, massaging and nourishing those pelvic organs. Feel as if you're bathing your pelvic organs and also your pelvic floor in this positive energy, in this sense of love, sending positive attention and acknowledgement for a lifetime of service. And with an inquiring mind, with a listening ear, maybe mentally asking this area of your body, what do you need me to know? And in this moment, you're not trying to fix or change or figure anything out. Just listen with a sense of love and openness. And mentally saying to the whole of your body, the whole of your body, I want to know you more. And I want to love you more. I'm ready to listen. I'm doing my best to listen. And it's okay if it takes time. Thank you, body. You are a masterpiece. And I know you love me and you're always trying to protect me. And I know that you know how to heal. Is there anything else you want me to know right now? And just feel into this remarkable instrument of life, this cloak that you wear through this lifetime, and just mentally say to your body, to the whole of your body, but especially to the pelvic area, thank you, thank you, and thank you. And just let that word reverberate around the body. Thank you. And becoming aware of all the sounds around you. Start to open your ears. Feel as if you're absorbing sound from not just close by, but from far away. Becoming very aware of the sensation of the air against any exposed skin. Become aware of the feeling of blankets, clothing, bolsters. Visualizing the room around you, the floor you're lying on, the ceiling, the walls. And then starting to increase the length of your inhalation, starting to pull deeper breaths into your lungs so that you feel as if you are energizing the whole body and the mind from the inside out. So pulling that breath right through the lungs and out into arms and legs so that you just give your fingers and your toes a little wriggle. And then move the head gently from side to side. And sliding your pillow or your bolster out from underneath you, just let your back settle into the ground and then slowly slide your legs down the wall and roll over to one side. So you're in the fetal position. And then very slowly taking your hands onto the ground and just pushing yourself up, and be very aware of the fluidity of your body, the fluid content of your body. So be very fluid as you come and sit, and finding a comfortable position. And then move the head and find that sweet spot where the head is perfectly positioned on top of your neck. If you've got that crown there and the weight is dropping straight down through your body. So you feel your core muscles switched on and you feel your shoulders relaxed. Good. And then take the fingertips out to the side and turn the palms to face the ceiling. And then as you breathe in, pull your fingertips up and around, right up towards the ceiling. Stretch your spine, looking up. And then exhale and go. And then another breath in. Releasing it. That's the way. And then last one, big breath in. Release that breath. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Namaste. Thank you, ladies.